+3, +4, +3, +4, +5, +6 are just some of the gains made by Alireza Firouzja. He is now the world number 2. He is the world's youngest junior, crossing the incredible barrier that is 2800 in the world of chess. What does it mean to break this barrier? And the truth is, why should you watch this video? Alireza Firouzja has broken Magnus Carlsen's record of being the youngest 2800 by 6 months. Here are the reasons to keep watching. One brilliant reason is you are going to see a setup with 2 rooks I've never seen before. Also, you will see Firouzja take down one of the best defenses in chess, the Sicilian Najdorf. Along with that, it really is all about fighting for squares. Black is fighting for c4, as you can see with these 4 coloured arrows. Notice the fact that the bishop and the knight are going to be offside the entire game. Firouzja makes this game look so easy, and finally you will witness a very smooth victory against a top Turkish player. Alireza Firouzja has white, Mustafa Yilmaz has black. This game took place in the European Team Championships. France versus Turkey. e4, c5. We have the Sicilian. Knight f3, d6 and d4. We have the open Sicilian. Take. Knight f6, knight c3 and a6. We have the Sicilian Najdorf. One of the best ways to play in chess. One of the best defenses. Bishop e3. The English attack, and after e5, knight b3. Couple of knights in front of your king. White is going to castle queenside. Extra protection is available. Bishop e6, queen d2. And knight d7, typical way for black to set up. The knights defend each other in the Najdorf. Castle. White is ready to go f3, g4, get a pawn storm rolling. Maybe even f4, f5. But what does Firouzja go for today? h3. By the way, just want to mention this is a typical cluster, a setup black gets when you play the Sicilian Najdorf. Knights defend each other, 2 bishops in the middle, you are ready to castle. b5 is coming up. Today, Firouzja plays h3. And after b5, planning to attack, you go g4. Who is going to attack who first? Because it really is about fighting for control over the key squares, which is what I mentioned at the beginning. Rook c8 was played, I want to check out b4 first. Because you attack my knight, if the knight moves, you might take in the center, right? Wrong. You do not actually get this opportunity. Knight d5. And if you play knight takes pawn, now queen b4. Black has got rid of a key pawn and has a lot of central control. A lot. This is not good for black. If we go back after knight d5, one sensible way to continue is to get rid of this knight take. Strengthening control. You're going to hear me say this all the time in this video. It's going to be about fighting for the squares. a5, and now a brilliant move. You hit the knight and then bishop b5. Looks like black might be making progress with a4, but there's a brilliant shot, knight c5 coming in, d6, and I will let you guys work it out. What a brilliant move, knight c5. I bet Firouzja was planning this. Knight c5, take, d6, lock out the bishop, queen d5, and it's just so difficult to even move. Knight is offside, this one. Bishop has come back home. Rooks to the middle. It's so dangerous. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Firouzja had this on his laptop in his preparation. So going back to the game, maybe this is exactly the type of position that Yilmaz was avoiding. Rook c8, normal move. Put the rook on the c file in the Sicilian. King b1, also another normal move. Knight b6, here we go again. I've said it once already. We are fighting for squares. Check this out. Pawn, knight, bishop, rook all fight for c4 square. At the moment, white is only controlling it with the bishop. So black has won control for that square. However, white is controlling d5. And to help strengthen that control, he's going to play g5 to attack the knight. Once the knight moves away, then look at the blue arrows. Pawn, knight, queen, rook all control d5, whereas at the moment we have knight, knight, bishop, 3 control that square, and white has 5. But once that knight moves away, black only has 2, fighting for d5, and white has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excuse me, white has 4. Can't count today. h4, defending the pawn. 4 pieces controlling d5. Knight comes into c4. Now, when this move happens, if we talk about the control, then black is losing control of d5. Now with this move, it does get rid of the bishop. And now after rook takes c4, Firouzja puts the knight straight in the middle. Another option, a forcing option, is to take with the pawn. Why? Buying some time, but also attacking the knight, and when the knight moves, the knight could reroute over, maybe queen c7. The queen and the rook can slide over and put pressure that way. After knight e2, maybe white could slide over as well. King a1, pawn to b3. This is a totally different way for the game to continue. Now back to the game. Yilmaz actually took with the rook. Knight d5 is now possible. Lots of arrows, let me explain. The blue arrows show all the options for the knights. The knight on d5 is so strong, Yilmaz actually takes it. This knight can also come to a5, which we're going to see very soon in a line. After take, queen takes is possible. The queen is very well placed in the center. Another brilliant option, to be honest, is taking with the pawn. It doesn't look right, but like I've said it already, I think I've said it twice now, it's all about fighting for control of key squares. The knight can now come to a5 and sit on c6. If it was black's move, if I could legally do it, I would pick up this pawn, put it on b7, so then it defends the c6 square, but I can't do that. Castle, knight a5, you attack the rook at the same time, we are coming in. If the rook moved back, then knight in is just so dangerous. Rook c1, c4, we actually can see that in the real game, so stay tuned for that maneuver coming up in a few moves. So going back to the game, Firouzja took with the queen, very sensible way to recapture. Queen c7, putting pressure on the pawn. But the cool thing is Firouzja doesn't defend it, he doesn't waste time, so he goes knight d2. Taking the rook goes back. You may be asking, why didn't he capture? It's because of rook c1. It doesn't matter that you have lost a pawn, because it is not a loss, it is a gain, it is a sacrifice. Why? It's open up the c file, take. And controlling so many squares, this is basically over. If the queen moves off the c file, then we're coming in with check, and we can even pick up that pawn. Really, the queen side is disappearing. This knight has been on the edge the whole game. Look out for that. Just look out for that. Firouzja makes it look so easy. He's basically shutting out the bishop and the knight the whole game. So if we go back to this position, Mustafa retreats the rook and now goes rook c1. If you want to check out a brilliant game, have a look at this in the top right corner. Victor Erdos versus Firouzja in the European Championships. One of the best games I've ever seen, and to this date is actually one of my best videos. More than 200 views, which is incredible for me. Rook c1. Castle, c3. Defend the knight with g6, rook c2, and rook c1. I've never ever seen anything like this, and I mentioned this at the start. Look out for this setup. Two rooks by white on the queen side, where black is normally the one playing, and Firouzja sets up like this. Now, what's the point? Well, let's say Mustafa keeps going with his typical moves in the Sicilian. Let's go a5, b4. That's the point. It turns out white is the one who's actually playing on the queen side. He set up for this. And you know what? Maybe this is a nice way to think about it. There are no easy pawn breaks. Black has actually done a good job to shut out white. So if white doesn't have play on the king side, he's got to switch over. I've never ever seen this new, fresh way of playing. It's brilliant. b4, rook c8. Deciding to switch, and now a brilliant move of a4. White is the one dictating the play. Now after rook c8, you might be asking why not queen takes b5. I was also asking this question. I couldn't really find the answer. The queen can actually tuck back. The king can tuck in the corner. I don't see a good way for black to follow up. But a4 was played. A couple of pawn breaks available to both sides. Now which capture is played? And the cool thing for Alireza is Mustafa made the wrong capture. This is a blunder. So we're going to check this out very soon. And we're going to see how Firouzja finished off the game so quickly. What happens if take? Push. And after queen b8, pinning. Step the queen back with queen d3. Knight f4. Step the queen back with queen f1. Rook goes back and king a2, and now play from here. These two pawns have been stopped. You can go c4. This knight is just a spectator. Overall, I would say white is better. Back to the game. Mustafa blundered with a takes b4. Pause the video now or let it run. Can you see a brilliant move by Alireza to finish it off? And the clue is, it's all to do with the pressure on the c-file. I'll give you 5 seconds. The brilliant move is queen takes rook. Amazing. White is the one playing on the queen side, and after take, take. That rook is going to drop. Really what has happened is Alireza has transformed the position from queen and 2 rooks each to being 2 rooks and a queen, except for the fact that Mustafa gives it back up. You cannot retreat the queen because you take the rook. So 2 rooks for the queen, check, and push, and it's game over. You just cannot stop this pawn. If you try to break free, then rook c7, we are actually going to pick up the bishop as well. Beautiful. That's why after this, and after take, 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 Yilmaz gave the queen back, take, take, but now keeps the rook. And with a5, this is a dream situation for any endgame player. It is when you have a protected pass pawn. White is much better, and here we go again. I think I've mentioned it about 3 times now. Knight and bishop, and I also mentioned this at the start. They just haven't done anything the whole game. It is move 28. White's bishop is better than black's. White's knight is better because it's got more potential. By the way, one option you might have been thinking, why not take and then take? It's because this is too fast. That is never going anywhere. If you stop it, you push. Take. Because if you do anything else, you push. Bishop here, and you guide it home. There's a way to force the promotion. So that was going to happen anyway. So Mustafa decided to keep the rooks in a5. Knight f4. This knight is a spectator, like I said before. You don't need to grab it. Because White's bishop is so much stronger. Rook c7, attack the bishop. Rook d7, and pick up the pawn very soon. So we go back here. Rook d7, you're going to pick it up soon. Knight d3, you attack this pawn, but Alireza pushes. Take, push, defended by both. More importantly, defended by the bishop. Rook goes to a8, and rook takes d6. You attack the rook, but now you come back to attack the bishop. Knight a6, you know your position is bad when you have to retreat a knight on the edge to defend. Rook d5, attack the pawn. Bishop a5, you attack the knight, and now knight b3, attacking the bishop. Everything is attacked. The rook attacks both pawns. Bishop continues to defend it. Yilmaz resigned. What a game. Now, there was one way for Firouzja just to mess up. If you are greedy, then you take. And after take, take. The pawn on a7 is now gone. Very, very important factor. Don't grab this pawn. I mean, so what? That pawn is not going anywhere. So, knight b3, attack the bishop. Bishop moves, and rook takes b5. The game is over. Yilmaz resigned. If we keep playing, let's see what happens. How can we force it home? Well, let's go for a tactic. If the king actually comes towards the center, knight c5 is a brilliant tactical shot. If you take, then check, and you lose the rook. So after knight c5, very nice way to get the knight in the game with a tactic. Check, and now rook b7, game over. If you get the king closer, bishop b6 is an absolutely brilliant move. Take, we can go for a check, forcing it home. Completely winning on the back. If you pin yourself with king d7, it's the same brilliant move, bishop b6. Getting into a one smooth, clean endgame by Alireza. Check, take, and every pawn is going to fall, unless you play rook takes, because then you defend your pawn, and then we get a pawn endgame. Take, take, 4 versus 3. Let's just get our passed pawn in the center, get the king closer, and we force it home. It's always possible to blunder. You don't want to go e5 because king d5, and now you've run out of moves. You have messed up. Chess is a very easy game to hate. One move, mate. One move and you mess up. So here, king back, and now you just find a way through and you are good. Just want to show you a cool setup here. When you get a position like this, it is not stalemate. Black actually has a move with h5, but now you can en passant, because when that happens, black still has a move with g5, but you push. and then you queen. Firouzja, he just made it look so easy. A beautiful, smooth game. Here is the brilliant game I mentioned earlier, Victor Erdos versus Firouzja. One of the best games I've ever seen, and one of my best performing videos ever. Check out how Firouzja played the Caro-Kann over here. However, if you don't like that video, you might enjoy YouTube's choice.